The 2003 adventure film Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl introduced audiences to a vibrant ensemble cast whose performances helped transform what might have been a simple theme park adaptation into one of the most memorable adventure films of the modern era. Much of the movie's success came from the unique chemistry between its actors, many of whom were at different stages in their careers. Some were already respected performers, while others were on the verge of becoming global stars. Together, they created characters that felt larger than life, yet still grounded in personality and humor. One of the most important figures in the film's success was Johnny Depp, who portrayed Captain Jack Sparrow. Before this role, Depp had already built a reputation as one of Hollywood's most unconventional leading men. He first rose to fame in the late 1980s through the television series 21 Jump Street, where he became a teen idol. However, Depp quickly resisted being typecast and instead pursued eccentric and artistic roles. His collaborations with director Tim Burton helped define his early film career. Movies such as Edward Scissorhands' Ed Wood and Sleepy Hollow showed his willingness to embrace unusual characters rather than conventional heroes. When Depp was cast as Jack Sparrow, many studio executives initially worried about his creative interpretation of the character. Instead of portraying a typical fearless pirate captain, Depp infused Sparrow with quirky mannerisms, slurred speech, and unpredictable movements. He reportedly drew inspiration from rock musician Keith Richards, imagining Sparrow as a kind of drunken rock star of the seas. This unusual choice gave the character a comedic and chaotic energy that quickly became iconic. Audiences responded immediately, and Depp received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. The role dramatically elevated his mainstream popularity and became the most recognizable character of his career. Jack Sparrow would eventually define a major era of Depp's filmography and appear in multiple sequels. Another central figure in the film was Orlando Bloom, who played Will Turner. Bloom was relatively new to international fame at the time, but had already gained attention through his role as Legolas in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and its sequels. In those films, Bloom portrayed an elegant and skilled elven warrior, which introduced an audiences as a heroic fantasy character. However, Will Turner required a slightly different tone. While still brave and capable, Will was written as a humble blacksmith with a strong sense of morality. Bloom's performance emphasized sincerity and determination, creating a character who could serve as the emotional anchor of the story. The success of Pirates of the Caribbean helped solidify Bloom's status as a leading man in major adventure franchises. Appearing in both the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Pirates series positioned him as one of the defining faces of early 2000s blockbuster cinema. His character's romance with Elizabeth Swann also added emotional depth to the story and helped balance the chaos brought by Jack Sparrow's unpredictable personality. The female lead of the film was Keira Knightley, who portrayed Elizabeth Swann. At the time of filming, Knightley was still very young, but had already begun building a reputation as a promising actress. She had appeared in smaller films and supporting roles, including Bend It Like Beckham, which had brought her significant international attention. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Knightley played the daughter of a colonial governor who secretly longs for adventure and freedom. Elizabeth Swann begins the story as a somewhat traditional aristocratic figure, constrained by the expectations of society. However, as the film progresses, she proves herself brave, clever, and capable of standing up to pirates and soldiers alike. Knightley's performance balanced elegance with determination, helping the character evolve into one of the most important figures in the franchise. The success of the film accelerated Knightley's career dramatically, leading to numerous high-profile roles in both blockbuster and dramatic films, including Pride and Prejudice and Atonement. Another essential performer in the film was Geoffrey Rush, who portrayed the villainous Captain Hector Barbossa. Rush was already an accomplished actor with a strong reputation in both theater and film. He had previously won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance in Shine. His portrayal of Barbossa brought theatrical intensity and charisma to the role. Rather than presenting a simple villain, Rush played Barbossa with intelligence, wit, and a dark sense of humor. Barbossa's curse-driven immortality and obsession with lifting the supernatural curse gave Rush an opportunity to explore both menace and irony. The character became one of the most memorable antagonists in modern adventure films. Rush's commanding performance balanced perfectly against Depp's eccentric portrayal of Jack Sparrow, creating a dynamic rivalry that energized many scenes in the film. Supporting the main cast were several experienced actors who helped establish the world of the story. Jack Davenport played Commodore James Norrington, a disciplined officer of the British Navy who represents law, order, and structure. His character served as a contrast to the chaotic freedom of piracy. Norrington's sense of duty and his complicated feelings toward Elizabeth Swann created additional tension in the story. Another key supporting role was played by Jonathan Pryce, who portrayed Governor Weatherby Swann, Elizabeth's father. Pryce brought warmth and authority to the role, portraying a man who genuinely cares for his daughter but struggles to understand her adventurous spirit. His performance added emotional grounding to the narrative and helped show the social expectations of the colonial society depicted in the film. Together, this ensemble cast formed one of the most memorable groups of characters in modern blockbuster cinema. What made their performances so effective was not just individual talent, but the chemistry between them. Depp's eccentricity, Bloom's sincerity, Knightley's determination, and Rush's theatrical villainy blended into a balanced dynamic that kept the story engaging. When Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl was released in 2003, few people expected it to become one of the most influential adventure films of the early 21st century. The movie was based on a theme park attraction rather than a traditional literary or historical source, which made many critics initially skeptical. Yet the film quickly proved that an imaginative adaptation, strong characters, and a unique tone could transform a simple concept into a cultural phenomenon. Over time, the film's influence spread far beyond cinema, affecting pop culture, fashion, internet humor, tourism, and even the way modern audiences imagine pirates. One of the most significant aspects of the film's cultural impact was its reinvention of the pirate genre. Before this movie, pirate films were considered financially risky. Several previous attempts in the 1990s had failed at the box office, including Cutthroat Island, which became infamous as one of the biggest commercial failures in Hollywood history. As a result, many studios believed audiences were no longer interested in pirate adventures. The success of Pirates of the Caribbean completely changed this perception. It demonstrated that audiences were still fascinated by pirate mythology when presented with humor, supernatural elements, and charismatic characters. The film revived the romantic image of piracy that had once been popular in classic Hollywood adventure films, such as Captain Blood and the Seahawk. However, it also modernized that image. Instead of portraying pirates simply as villains or heroic swashbucklers, the film presented them as morally ambiguous figures. Jack Sparrow was clever and entertaining, but also selfish and unpredictable. This complexity made pirate characters feel more human and relatable, which resonated strongly with modern audiences. A huge part of the movie's cultural influence came from the character of Captain Jack Sparrow, portrayed by Johnny Depp. Sparrow quickly became one of the most recognizable fictional characters of the 2000s. His unusual personality, humorous dialogue, and distinctive appearance created a character that audiences loved to imitate and quote. The line about the worst pirate you've ever heard of became one of the most quoted jokes from the film. Sparrow's influence spread into everyday culture. Halloween costumes inspired by the character became extremely popular, with people copying his braided hair, tricorn hat, and dramatic eyeliner. The character's appearance also influenced fashion trends related to pirate aesthetics, including layered jewelry, leather accessories, and rugged clothing styles inspired by maritime adventure. Another area where the film made a lasting cultural impact was internet culture. During the early 2000s, the internet was rapidly expanding, and Pirates of the Caribbean became a frequent subject of online discussions, fan art, and memes. Scenes featuring Jack Sparrow's exaggerated gestures and expressions were widely shared across early forums and video platforms. Lines of dialogue in the film became popular reaction jokes, helping the movie remain part of online humor for many years. The film also inspired countless references in other forms of media. Television shows, animated series, and video games often reference Jack Sparrow or the broader Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. The character appeared as a parody or homage in several comedy programs and animated series. Even films outside the pirate genre occasionally reference the character's personality or costume design as a recognizable symbol of adventure and rebellion beyond entertainment. The movie also influenced tourism and historical interest in pirate culture. Many viewers became curious about real historical pirates, such as Blackbeard and Bonnie. Museums, documentaries, and books about the golden age of piracy saw renewed interest. Coastal regions in the Caribbean began promoting pirate-themed tours and events that capitalized on the popularity of the film series. The film also strengthened the cultural presence of the original theme park attraction at Disney theme parks. The ride Pirates of the Caribbean attraction had existed since the 1960s, but after the film's success, it gained renewed attention. Theme parks updated parts of the ride to include characters from the movie, including Captain Jack Sparrow and Captain Barbossa. This unusual example of the film influencing the attraction that originally inspired it demonstrated how deeply the movie had reshaped the franchise's identity. In addition, the film played a role in changing Hollywood's approach to blockbuster storytelling. It showed that audiences were eager for original adventure worlds that were not directly based on comic books or well-known novels. The film combined action, comedy, supernatural horror, and romance into a single narrative style. This genre blending became increasingly common in later blockbuster films. The impact of the film also extended to its influence on other fantasy adventure movies. After its success, studios became more willing to invest in large-scale historical fantasy stories involving mythology, curses, and elaborate world-building. The combination of historical settings with supernatural elements helped inspire similar approaches in later films and television series. Another interesting aspect of the film's cultural significance was its ability to appeal to multiple generations. Older viewers appreciated the classic adventure tone reminiscent of mid-20th century swashbuckling films. Younger audiences were drawn to the humor, special effects, and energetic pacing. This cross-generational appeal helped the movie maintain popularity for many years and ensure that the franchise continued to grow. The film also sparked discussions about heroism and morality in popular culture. Jack Sparrow was not a traditional hero in the sense of being noble or honorable. Instead, he survived through wit, deception, and improvisation. Audiences found this morally flexible character fascinating because he represented a different type of protagonist. He was flawed, unpredictable, and often motivated by self-interest, yet still capable of helping others at crucial moments. This kind of anti-hero character became increasingly common in later entertainment. Many television series and films began exploring protagonists who were morally ambiguous but still sympathetic. While Pirates of the Caribbean did not invent this idea, the popularity of Jack Sparrow demonstrated how appealing such characters could be to mainstream audiences. The creation of Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, was a complex and ambitious process that involved hundreds of artists, technicians, and performers working together to bring the world of pirates, curses, and naval battles to life. Although the film appears effortless and entertaining on screen, the production behind it was filled with challenges, creative risks, unexpected decisions, and memorable stories from the cast and crew. These behind-the-scenes moments reveal how the movie evolved from a risky idea into one of the most successful adventure films of its era. One of the most unusual aspects of the project was its origin. The movie was inspired by the famous theme park ride known as the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, created by Disney. Adapting a theme park ride into a feature film was considered a strange idea at the time. The ride itself had a loose narrative involving pirates attacking a port town, but it did not provide a detailed story or characters that could easily become a foundation for a 2-hour movie. This meant that the screenwriters and filmmakers had to build most of the story from scratch while still preserving the playful spirit of the attraction. The film was directed by Gore Verbinski, a filmmaker known for his energetic visual style and ability to balance humor with suspense. Before Pirate of the Caribbean, Verbinski had directed films such as The Ring and Mouse Hunt. His experience in both horror and comedy helped him shape the movie's unique tone. The film mixes dark supernatural elements with light-hearted humor, something that could easily have become confusing if handled poorly. Verbinski's direction allowed the movie to maintain a sense of adventure without becoming too serious or too comedic. Casting the film was another crucial stage of the production process. The character of Captain Jack Sparrow was written as a charming pirate captain, but when Johnny Depp joined the project, he brought a completely different interpretation to the role. Instead of playing Sparrow as a traditional heroic pirate, Depp imagined him as a strange, unpredictable figure who often seemed slightly intoxicated or confused. His performance included swaying movements, unusual speech patterns, and humorous pauses. This creative choice initially caused concern among studio executives. Some executives believed Depp was making the character too strange and worried that audiences would not understand performance. According to stories from the set, executives even asked whether the actor was intentionally playing the character drunk. However, director Gore Verbinski supported Depp's interpretation and allowed him to continue developing the character. Once the film was released, the performance was widely praised and became one of the defining elements of the movie. Another interesting behind-the-scenes detail involved the inspiration for Jack Sparrow's personality. Johnny Depp revealed that he partly based the character on the rock musician Keith Richards of the band the Rolling Stones. Depp admired Richards' relaxed and rebellious attitude and imagined that pirates might behave like rock stars of the 18th century. This influence can be seen in Sparrow's casual confidence, eccentric gestures, and unconventional sense of humor. The filming locations also played a major role in shaping the movie's atmosphere. Many scenes were filmed in the Caribbean itself, including locations in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Dominica. These tropical environments provided beautiful beaches, dense jungles, and dramatic coastlines that helped create the authentic feeling of a pirate world. However, filming in these remote locations also created logistical challenges. Transporting equipment, building sets, and coordinating large action scenes in tropical conditions required careful planning. One of the most impressive sets built for the film was the pirate port known as Tortuga. The production team constructed a large detailed set that included wooden buildings, docks, taverns, and crowded streets. This location appears chaotic and lively in the film, filled with pirates drinking, arguing, and celebrating. Creating such an environment required hundreds of extras and careful coordination between costume designers, stunt performers, and camera operators. The film also required elaborate ship sets. Several large sailing ships were constructed or modified for production. These include the Black Pearl, Captain Barbassa's ship, and the Interceptor, a naval vessel used by the British Navy. Filming scenes on ships presented unique difficulties because the sets were often built on water or designed to rock and move like real vessels. Actors had to perform sword fights and dramatic action sequences while balancing on unstable surfaces. Special effects were another major challenge during production. The story required the cursed pirate crew to transform into skeletal figures whenever they stepped into moonlight. Creating this effect required a combination of practical makeup and computer-generated imagery. The visual effects team carefully tracked the actors' movements and replaced parts of their bodies with animated skeletons during specific moments. At the time, this technology was still developing, so achieving convincing results required enormous effort and experimentation. The cursed skeleton pirates became one of the most memorable visual elements of the film. The effect allowed the story to blend horror imagery with adventure storytelling. Audiences were surprised to see pirates transform into eerie skeletal figures during battle scenes, creating a dramatic contrast between humor and supernatural danger. The production also included numerous complex stunt sequences. Sword fights, explosions, ship battles, and chases required skilled stunt performers working closely with the actors. One famous scene involves Jack Sparrow arriving at port while standing proudly on the mast of a sinking boat. As the boat slowly sinks beneath the water, Sparrow calmly steps onto the dock at the last possible moment. The scene became iconic, but filming it required careful coordination between the stunt team, special effects crew, and camera operators. Another memorable action sequence takes place in a blacksmith shop. Will Turner and Jack Sparrow engage in a fast-paced sword fight? The scene features creative choreography that uses the environment itself as part of the fight. Swords clash across wooden beams, gears spin, and objects break as the characters leap and dodge around the room. The actors practice extensively with stunt coordinators to make the fight look both dangerous and entertaining. Weather also created challenges during the shoot. Filming in tropical regions meant dealing with sudden storms, intense heat, and unpredictable conditions. Rain could delay filming, while strong sunlight made it difficult to control lighting during outdoor scenes. Despite these obstacles, the production team managed to capture the vivid landscapes that became a defining visual feature of the movie. The story of Pirate of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, is carefully constructed as a classic adventure narrative that blends action, mystery, humor, romance, and supernatural horror. The film's plot unfolds in a way that slowly reveals secrets while maintaining momentum through a series of escalating conflicts. The narrative structure follows a traditional adventure format with clear acts, turning points, and a dramatic climax, yet it also introduces surprising twists that keep the audience engaged throughout the story. The film begins with a prologue set years before the main events. A young girl named Elizabeth Swan is sailing to the port town of Port Royal with her father, Governor Weatherby Swan. During the voyage, they discover a shipwreck and rescue a surviving boy named Will Turner. This early scene quietly introduces several important narrative elements that will become crucial later. Elizabeth notices that Will is wearing a mysterious gold pirate medallion around his neck. Fearing that the adults might accuse him of being a pirate, she secretly takes the medallion and hides it. This small decision becomes the foundation of the entire story, because the medallion is part of a cursed treasure that pirates desperately seek. After this introduction, the story jumps forward many years. Will Turner has grown into a skilled blacksmith working in Port Royal, while Elizabeth Swan has become a young woman living under the strict expectations of colonial society. Their relationship forms the emotional core of the narrative. Will secretly loves Elizabeth but believes that his low social status prevents him from expressing his feelings. Elizabeth, on the other hand, feels trapped by the formal rules of aristocratic life and longs for adventure. The narrative's first major turning point occurs with the arrival of Captain Jack Sparrow, played by Johnny Depp. Jack arrives in Port Royal in a humorous yet symbolic scene in which he sails into the harbor on a sinking boat. As the vessel slowly disappears beneath the water, he steps calmly onto the dock. This moment introduces the audience to Jack's personality. Clever, confident, and completely unconventional. Although he presents himself as a pirate captain, he currently has no ship and very little luck. Jack's arrival sets several plot threads into motion. He attempts to steal a ship from the British Navy, but is captured and imprisoned after a brief confrontation with Will Turner. However, this conflict is interrupted by the sudden attack of the pirate ship known as the Black Pearl. The crew of the Black Pearl invades Port Royal searching for the gold medallion that Elizabeth possesses. Believing her last name is Turner, the pirates assume she is connected to the bloodline required to break their curse. They kidnap her and sail away with the medallion. This kidnapping launches the central adventure of the story. Will Turner becomes determined to rescue Elizabeth, even if it means working with a pirate. He reluctantly frees Jack Sparrow from prison because Jack knows how to track the Black Pearl and its captain, Hector Barbassa. The alliance between Will and Jack is one of the film's most important narrative devices. Their personalities contrast sharply. Will represents honor, loyalty, and determination, while Jack represents improvisation, deception, and unpredictable strategy. Together they form an unusual partnership that drives the story forward. As the plot continues, the audience gradually learns about the mysterious curse affecting Barbassa and his crew. Captain Barbassa, portrayed by Geoffrey Rush, explains that the pirates stole a legendary treasure from a hidden island. The treasure was cursed, transforming the pirates into undead beings who cannot feel pleasure, taste food, or die. In moonlight, they appear as skeletal figures, revealing the horror of their condition. The only way to break the curse is to return every piece of the treasure, along with a blood sacrifice, from someone connected to the original thieves. This revelation creates an important layer of dramatic tension. The pirates are both villains and victims. They committed greed and theft, yet their punishment is eternal suffering. Barbassa's obsession with lifting the curse drives his actions, making him a complex antagonist rather than a simple enemy. The middle section of the film follows multiple storylines that gradually converge. Jack will gather a crew and pursue the Black Pearl, while Elizabeth tries to outsmart Barbassa's pirates. Elizabeth proves herself clever and resourceful, negotiating with the pirates and attempting several escapes. At the same time, Commodore Norrington and the British Navy launch their own pursuit, adding another layer of conflict. These intersecting goals create a dynamic narrative structure where different groups chase each other across the ocean. Jack wants to reclaim the Black Pearl, which was originally his ship before Barbassa betrayed him. Will wants to save Elizabeth. Barbassa wants to break the curse. The British Navy wants to capture all the pirates. Each group has a different objective, and their motivations constantly collide. A key turning point occurs when Barbossa realizes that Elizabeth is not actually the person whose blood is needed to break the curse. Instead, Will Turner is the true descendant connected to the treasure. This discovery raises the stakes dramatically. Barbossa's crew captures Will and prepares to sacrifice him, believing that his blood will finally free them from their cursed existence. The story builds toward its climax on the mysterious island where the cursed treasure is hidden. Jack Sparrow infiltrates Barbossa's crew and cleverly manipulates the situation to regain control of the Black Pearl. The final battle combines sword fighting, supernatural transformations, and strategic deception. During the confrontation, Jack himself temporarily becomes cursed by stealing a piece of the treasure, allowing him to fight Barbossa as an equal. The climax resolves multiple storylines simultaneously. Will's blood is used to complete the ritual that lifts the curse, returning the pirates to mortal form. At the same moment, Jack shoots Barbossa, ending the villain's reign. The curse is broken, the battle ends, and the surviving characters must face the consequences of their choices. The film concludes with a satisfying resolution. Will declares his love for Elizabeth, breaking the social barrier that once separated them. Jack Sparrow, however, escapes from the authorities and regains command of the Black Pearl. His escape reinforces a theme of freedom and adventure that defines his character. Rather than ending with total order restored, the story allows Jack to continue living as a pirate, leaving the door open for future adventures. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl is much more than an entertaining swashbuckling adventure. Beneath the sword fights, ship battles, and comic antics lies a rich tapestry of themes and symbolism that explore human nature, morality, identity, and freedom. The film's appeal comes not only from its action sequences, but also from the layered ideas that run throughout the story, giving depth to the characters and their journeys. One of the central themes of the film is freedom versus control. Captain Jack Sparrow embodies freedom in its most chaotic and personal form. He refuses to submit to authority, whether it be the British Navy, colonial law, or other pirate captains. Jack's actions are guided by improvisation, personal gain, and survival instincts rather than social rules or moral codes. In contrast, Commodore Norrington represents order, discipline, and societal expectations. The tension between Jack's freewheeling lifestyle and the structured world of Port Royal creates a central conflict that extends beyond mere action sequences, reflecting the universal human struggle between individuality and conformity. The theme of morality and ethical ambiguity is closely tied to this idea of freedom. The pirates of the Black Pearl, particularly Captain Barbossa, are neither purely evil nor purely heroic. Their curse forces them to confront the consequences of their greed, showing that immoral actions carry consequences, yet the curse also makes them victims of circumstances beyond their control. Jack Sparrow similarly operates in moral gray areas. He steals, deceives, and manipulates, yet audiences are encouraged to root for him because of his wit, charm, and occasional acts of heroism. The film explores the notion that morality is not absolute, and survival, loyalty, and cunning often define right and wrong in unpredictable circumstances. Another prominent theme is identity and self-discovery. Several characters in the film grapple with understanding who they are and what roles they occupy in the world. Will Turner begins the story as a humble blacksmith, unaware of his significance in the pirate mythos. His journey involves embracing his lineage and taking responsibility for both his personal and larger societal roles. Elizabeth Swann similarly struggles against the constraints of her social position. She is expected to conform to the behavior of an aristocratic daughter, yet her adventurous spirit compels her to defy these expectations. Through her choices, Elizabeth demonstrates agency, courage, and moral complexity. Identity in the film is tied to action, choice, and courage rather than social or inherited status. Love and loyalty also play key thematic roles. The romance between Will and Elizabeth provides emotional grounding amid the supernatural and chaotic elements of the story. Love is portrayed as both a motivator and a challenge. Will's devotion to Elizabeth drives him to pursue her across dangerous seas, while Elizabeth demonstrates loyalty to those she trusts, even under threat from deadly pirates. At the same time, Jack Sparrow's relationships are less conventional. His loyalty is situational, and his motivations are often self-serving, highlighting a contrast between romantic or ethical loyalty and pragmatic survival. Greed and its consequences are represented both literally and symbolically through the cursed treasure of Cortez's gold. The gold coins, once stolen by Barbossa and his crew, carry a supernatural curse that turns the pirates into skeletal, immortal figures. This symbolizes the destructive nature of avarice. While the gold is beautiful and desirable, it brings eternal suffering. The curse illustrates how unchecked desire can trap individuals, making them prisoners of their own ambition. The treasure acts as both a plot device and a symbol of human obsession, illustrating the tension between desire, morality, and consequence. The supernatural itself functions symbolically throughout the film. The cursed pirates, the treasure, and the mystical elements of the story reflect a larger theme of unseen forces shaping human behavior. The skeleton pirates in particular serve as a visual metaphor for the hidden consequences of immoral actions. By day, they appear human, blending into society. By moonlight, their true forms are revealed. This transformation suggests that people often conceal their flaws, greed, or darkness until circumstances expose them. It also reinforces a duality between appearance and reality, a recurring motif throughout the story. Another recurring symbol is the sea itself. The ocean in the film represents both freedom and danger. It is a realm where Jack Sparrow thrives and where pirates feel most alive, but it is also a place of unpredictability, risk, and death. The sea functions as a metaphor for life's challenges, vast, uncontrollable, and capable of sudden change. It reflects the film's larger theme of adventure and risk as necessary conditions for personal growth and self-discovery. The characters' objects and props carry symbolic weight as well. Jack Sparrow's compass, which does not point north but instead to what the holder most desires, symbolizes his pursuit of personal ambition and his unconventional approach to navigation, both literal and metaphorical. The cursed coins represent greed. Elizabeth's medallion represents innocence and a connection between past and present, and swords symbolize both power and responsibility. These objects serve as extensions of character motivations and reinforce thematic concerns throughout the film. The interplay of humor and darkness also has thematic significance. The film blends comedic elements with violent or supernatural moments to highlight the complexity of human experience. Laughter emerges even in tense situations, suggesting that resilience, ingenuity, and what are essential tools for navigating a world filled with danger and uncertainty. Humor, especially through Jack Sparrow, becomes both a coping mechanism and a form of subversion, allowing the audience to experience the thrill of adventure while recognizing the absurdity of certain conventions and moral dilemmas. Control versus chaos is reinforced through narrative choices and character behavior. Jack Sparrow's improvisational tactics frequently disrupt the plans of other characters, demonstrating that strategy, cunning, and adaptability can rival brute force or rigid authority. The film celebrates intelligence, resourcefulness, and creativity as necessary traits for survival and success, particularly in unpredictable circumstances like the high seas. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl stands out visually for its lush, cinematic style that blends realism with fantasy to create a vivid and immersive pirate world. The film's visual style and cinematography were central to its ability to transport audiences into an 18th century Caribbean filled with adventure, danger, and supernatural elements. The creative choices in lighting, camera movement, framing, color palette, and visual motifs all work together to support storytelling, enhance mood, and highlight character dynamics. One of the most striking features of the film's cinematography is its use of lighting to differentiate between the human and supernatural aspects of the story. The cursed pirates are presented in ordinary human form during most daytime scenes, but under moonlight, their true skeletal forms are revealed. This transformation is enhanced through careful lighting, which casts eerie shadows and emphasizes textures that signal unnatural qualities. The contrast between warm, sunny port scenes and the ghostly, moonlit curse scenes reinforces the tension between everyday life and the fantastical world of pirates. The color palette throughout the film is another essential aspect of the visual style. Warm golds, browns, and sandy tones dominate Port Royal and ship interiors, evoking colonial-era authenticity and a sense of civilization. In contrast, muted grays, silvers, and dark greens dominate scenes involving the cursed crew or mysterious islands, creating a visual distinction between the ordinary world and the supernatural realm. This contrast subtly reinforces the narrative's thematic concerns, such as a tension between order and chaos, morality and greed. Camera movement plays a vital role in creating a sense of action, scale, and immersion. Director Gore Verbinski and cinematographer Dariusz Wajda use fluid tracking shots during ship sequences to simulate the motion of the sea and provide dynamic perspectives of naval battles. Sweeping wide shots emphasize the vastness of the ocean and the isolation of pirate life, while tighter close-ups during sword fights or tense interactions heighten intimacy and emotional intensity. The combination of wide and close framing allows the audience to appreciate both the epic scope and the human stakes of the story. Visual motifs are used consistently to convey underlying ideas. For example, spiraling staircases on ships and in forts appear repeatedly, suggesting the cyclical nature of fate, greed, and revenge. The interplay of ropes, rigging, and sails often frames characters in ways that emphasize entrapment, freedom, or unpredictability. Jack Sparrow is frequently framed against open sky or water, visually reinforcing his association with freedom, while Elizabeth and are often shown within constrained architectural spaces until they embrace adventure or courage, visually symbolizing their personal growth. The design of the ships themselves contributes heavily to the visual storytelling. The Black Pearl is a particularly striking example, with its sleek black hull and slightly exaggerated curves giving it an almost supernatural presence. Camera angles emphasize the ship's imposing size and mobility, conveying both the danger and allure of piracy. The interplay of sails, rigging, and lighting during ship battles heightens drama and allows the audience to track the chaotic movement of combat without losing visual clarity. Special effects are seamlessly integrated with practical cinematography, enhancing believability. The transformation of the cursed crew into skeletal forms was achieved through a combination of digital effects and motion tracking, allowing actors to interact naturally with their environment while still producing strikingly realistic supernatural imagery. Explosions, sword clashes, and cannon fire are captured with a blend of slow motion, close-up, and wide shots to balance spectacle with emotional impact, ensuring that the audience feels both the danger and the excitement. The film also makes skillful use of texture and set design to reinforce its visual narrative. Wood, rope, canvas, and metal appear consistently in ship interiors, docks, and pirate hideouts, creating tactile realism. Weathered surfaces and naturalistic imperfections make the world feel lived in and authentic, while also complementing the lighting and color palette to maintain continuity and immersion. Costume and makeup design work alongside cinematography to ensure that characters stand out visually, with Jack Sparrow's eccentric attire and the cursed pirate skeletal features adding visual storytelling layers without distracting from the action. Camera angles often emphasize hierarchy, conflict, and suspense. Low-angle shots portray villains like Barbassa as menacing and commanding, while higher-angle perspectives highlight vulnerability, as seen when Elizabeth or Will are in peril. The film also uses creative perspectives to generate humor or tension. For example, Jack Sparrow is sometimes filmed at unusual angles that exaggerate his swaying or off-balance posture, visually reinforcing his chaotic personality and providing subtle comedic beats. The cinematography balances naturalistic and theatrical approaches. While many outdoor sequences take advantage of real locations, the use of exaggerated framing, controlled lighting, and cinematic composition creates a heightened sense of drama. Interiors are often lit with warm, naturalistic sources, such as lanterns or sunlight streaming through windows, adding a sense of realism, while shadowed corners and fog enhance mystery and danger. Color and lighting also play a psychological role. Moonlight scenes create an otherworldly glow, emphasizing the horror of the curse while maintaining visual clarity. Sunsets, tropical skies, and sparkling waters create a sense of romance and adventure, supporting emotional arcs and giving the audience a sense of escapism. These visual cues help the audience understand the stakes and atmosphere even before dialogue is spoken. The editing and pacing of visual sequences also contribute to the cinematography. Action sequences are composed to maintain spatial awareness while delivering high-energy spectacle. Sword fights and ship battles rely on quick cuts interspersed with longer tracking shots to give both clarity and dynamism. Cinematography works in tandem with editing to ensure that audiences are never disoriented, while still feeling the chaos and intensity of combat. The visual style reinforces character identities. Jack Sparrow's movement, framing, and lighting distinguish him from other characters. He is often shown in diagonal or unbalanced compositions, echoing his unpredictable nature. Will and Elizabeth are frequently framed symmetrically or within natural lines, suggesting stability, morality, and the ordered lives they leave behind to embrace adventure. Barbassa's skeletal curse is framed with dramatic contrasts that make him imposing and terrifying, emphasize his role as both antagonist and symbol of the consequences of greed. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl is widely celebrated not only for its thrilling visuals and charismatic performances, but also for its powerful and memorable soundtrack and sound design. These auditory elements play a crucial role in shaping the film's atmosphere, enhancing emotional beats, and immersing the audience in the high seas adventure. The music and soundscape support both the narrative and thematic content, reinforcing the story's energy, tension, humor, and supernatural elements. The musical score for the film was composed by Klaus Badelt in collaboration with Hans Zimmer, who contributed ideas and guidance. The soundtrack became one of the defining features of the film and is instantly recognizable to audiences worldwide. Its opening theme, which introduces the iconic swashbuckling motifs, combines rhythmic percussion, soaring strings, and bold brass, immediately establishing a sense of adventure and excitement. The music signals that the film will be a high-energy, epic story while still leaving room for humor and unpredictability. The score uses leitmotifs extensively, giving individual characters or ideas their own musical identity. Jack Sparrow's theme is playful, irregular, and unpredictable, mirroring his chaotic personality and improvisational style. In contrast, the cursed pirates, especially Captain Barbassa, have darker, more ominous motifs that emphasize danger, supernatural horror, and the weight of their immortal curse. Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann have motifs that combine romantic and heroic elements, providing emotional grounding for their personal arcs. These recurring themes help the audience recognize characters and emotional cues, even when complex action or plot twists occur. Sound design is equally important in creating the immersive pirate world. The noises of creaking wood, snapping ropes, slapping sails, and crashing waves bring authenticity to shipboard scenes. Cannon fire, sword clashes, and explosions are meticulously layered, blending practical effects with digital enhancement to maintain realism without overwhelming the audience. The combination of music and naturalistic sound effects ensures that even chaotic battles remain coherent and exciting. The film also uses sound to heighten suspense and tension. For scenes involving the cursed pirates, subtle audio cues signal their supernatural presence. The metallic clinking of treasure coins, ghostly whispers, and echoing footsteps often precede the reveal of the skeletal forms under moonlight. These auditory hints build anticipation and fear without immediately showing the visual effects, making the transformations more dramatic and impactful. Humor and character personality are also enhanced by sound design. Jack Sparrow's eccentric gestures and speech patterns are often accompanied by exaggerated sound and movement, such as swaying steps, clattering objects, or the slapstick elements of his escapades. These effects are carefully timed to complement both dialogue and action, reinforcing comedic timing, while maintaining the film's adventurous tone. The soundtrack plays a vital role in balancing different genres within the film. Pirates of the Caribbean is simultaneously action, comedy, romance, and supernatural thriller, and the music helps the transitions feel natural. Intense action sequences are underscored by fast-paced orchestral rhythms and driving percussion, creating momentum and excitement. Emotional or romantic scenes are supported by slower, melodic passages that allow the audience to feel the stakes and the characters' internal conflicts. Scenes involving humor often feature playful motifs, unusual instrumentation, or sudden musical flourishes that accentuate comic timing. One of the most famous uses of music in the film is during sword fight sequences, such as the blacksmith shop duel between Jack Sparrow and Will Turner. The score integrates rhythmic percussion that mirrors the rhythm of the duel itself. Swords clash in synchrony with musical beats, creating a sense of choreography between action and sound. This synchronization heightens attention, making the fight not only a visual spectacle but also an auditory experience that draws the audience fully into the scene. The film also carefully uses silence and restraint to create dramatic impact. Moments of quiet often precede major reveals or battles, allowing viewers to anticipate danger. For example, in scenes where the cursed pirates are approaching or preparing an ambush, the absence of music or ambient sound accentuates the supernatural threat. When combined with sudden musical swells or explosive sound effects, these shifts maximize suspense and emotional resonance. Voice acting and dialogue also interact closely with the soundscape. Actors' deliveries are carefully recorded to integrate with the score and ambient noise. Jack Sparrow's mumbling, dramatic pauses and idiosyncratic speech patterns are supported by audio mixing that ensures clarity while allowing subtle comedic or dramatic nuances to shine. Sword clashes, cannon blasts, and environmental sounds are layered beneath dialogue, allowing action and story to coexist without confusion. The soundtrack also contributes to world building. Nautical sounds, tropical wildlife, crashing waves, and bustling port town effects immerse viewers in the Caribbean environment. The combination of music and ambient sound reinforces a historical setting, emphasizing both the danger and allure of pirate life. Even in quiet character moments, subtle environmental sounds maintain continuity and realism, keeping the world alive. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl was released in 2003 to both commercial success and widespread critical attention, establishing itself as a landmark film in the adventure genre. Its reception was remarkable for the way it managed to please mainstream audiences, while also garnering recognition from critics for its performances, visual style, and inventive storytelling. The film's blend of humor, action, romance, and supernatural elements made it appealing to a wide range of viewers, and success sparked a renewed interest in pirate-themed stories. From a commercial standpoint, the film exceeded expectations. The combination of familiar theme park brand with an original narrative drew in audiences of all ages. Box office numbers quickly reflected this enthusiasm, with the film grossing hundreds of millions worldwide. It became one of the highest-grossing films of 2003 and laid the groundwork for a franchise that would expand to multiple sequels, merchandising deals, and theme park tie-ins. The unexpected financial success also demonstrated that carefully executed original adventure stories could succeed even in an era dominated by superhero films and fantasy franchises. Critics largely praised the film for its entertaining mix of action, comedy, and character-driven storytelling. Johnny Depp received particular acclaim for his portrayal of Jack Sparrow. Critics highlighted how Depp's eccentric performance transformed what could have been a conventional pirate character into one of the most memorable figures in modern cinema. His gestures, speech patterns, and unpredictable behavior were noted as a key factor in the film's charm, with many reviewers commenting that his performance elevated the movie from a typical action-adventure to a character-driven spectacle. The supporting cast also received positive attention. Geoffrey Rush was praised for bringing depth and theatrical intensity to Captain Barbossa, turning the villain into a multifaceted character who was both menacing and compelling. Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley were recognized for providing emotional grounding to the story, with their romance adding human stakes amid the fantastical chaos. Many critics appreciated how the ensemble cast balanced humor, heroism, and drama, creating characters that audiences care about beyond their role in the action sequences. The film's visual effects and cinematography were also noted in reviews. Critics admired the seamless integration of practical and digital effects, particularly the transformation of the cursed pirates into skeletal figures under moonlight. The ship battles, sword fights, and detailed set pieces were praised for their scale, clarity, and excitement. The film's cinematography successfully conveyed both the grandeur of the Caribbean setting and the intimacy of character-driven moments, enhancing the overall storytelling experience. The screenplay received mixed but generally favorable assessments. Many reviewers praised the film's witty dialogue, clever humor, and engaging plot, noting that the story managed to balance multiple threads without becoming confusing. However, some critics argue that certain plot devices, such as the cursed treasure or sudden character revelations, relied on familiar tropes. Even in these criticisms, most agreed that the film handled these elements with style and flair, and the charm of the performances and action sequences outweighed any narrative predictability. Audiences responded enthusiastically, as evidenced by strong word-of-mouth and positive audience ratings. Fans appreciated the combination of humor, spectacle, and romance, and the film became a cultural phenomenon. Jack Sparrow's quirky personality quickly became iconic, with viewers imitating his gestures, speech, and style. The character's popularity was a major driver of the film's lasting appeal, contributing to its immediate recognition and ongoing cultural significance. The film's reception also included recognition from industry organizations and award committees. Johnny Depp received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, an unusual honor for a performance in a mainstream action-adventure film. Geoffrey Rush also received acclaim for his role, and the film was nominated for several technical awards, including sound editing, visual effects, and makeup, highlighting its excellence in both creative and technical execution. These nominations reflected the industry's acknowledgement of the film's quality beyond its entertainment value. Some criticisms did emerge, particularly regarding pacing and tonal shifts. A few reviewers felt that the film occasionally struggled to balance humor with darker supernatural elements, causing brief moments of tonal inconsistency. Others noted that certain character motivations or plot conveniences were not fully explained, though these issues were generally considered minor compared to the film's overall achievements. The combination of compelling characters, imaginative visuals, and dynamic action sequences largely mitigated any perceived flaws. The film's impact was not limited to immediate reviews or box office success. It influenced subsequent adventure and fantasy films, demonstrating that a story could combine comedy, supernatural elements, and historical settings while appealing to a global audience. Its success encouraged studios to pursue original adventure narratives and contribute to the rise of franchise filmmaking focused on memorable characters, detailed world-building, and cross-generational appeal. Critically and commercially, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl established a benchmark for modern adventure films. It combined strong character performances, innovative visual effects, effective sound design, and memorable musical motifs into a cohesive and entertaining experience. Its positive reception proved that audiences were ready for imaginative stories that blended humor, action, and supernatural intrigue, while critics acknowledged its creativity, energy, and engaging performances. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl has had an enduring legacy that extends far beyond its initial release in 2003, shaping the adventure genre, influencing filmmakers, and inspiring a broad spectrum of media, merchandise, and pop culture phenomena. Its success established a blueprint for combining humor, action, romance, and supernatural elements within a single blockbuster, and it launched a franchise that became a global entertainment phenomenon. The influence of the film could be traced in multiple domains, from cinema and television to theme parks, video games, and merchandising strategies. One of the most immediate and tangible impacts of the film was the creation of a highly successful franchise. Following the original movie, several sequels were produced, including Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides, and Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Each sequel expanded the narrative universe, explored new themes, and introduced additional characters and adventures. The franchise's longevity has demonstrated the enduring appeal of the characters, story, and distinctive blend of genres established in the first film. Jack Sparrow became a cultural icon, inspiring countless imitations, references, and homages across media. The influence of Pirates of the Caribbean on the adventure genre is significant. Before the film, pirate stories had largely been considered commercially risky, and the genre had few contemporary successes. The film demonstrated that audiences could embrace imaginative historical fantasy adventures if they were combined with humor, well-developed characters, and supernatural elements. This success encouraged studios to invest in similar large-scale period adventure films and franchise-based storytelling. Filmmakers increasingly sought to blend historical settings with fantastical or mythological elements, using the pirates model to appeal to a wide demographic while providing room for creativity. Beyond its influence on cinematic storytelling, the film impacted the portrayal of anti-heroes in mainstream cinema. Jack Sparrow's morally ambiguous yet charismatic character challenged conventional ideas of heroism in blockbuster films. Audiences responded to a protagonist who relied on wit, cunning, and unpredictability rather than traditional noble ideals. This shift influenced the characterization of subsequent action heroes, encouraging more complex, flawed, and unconventional leading characters in popular films. The visual and technical achievement of the film also contributed to its legacy. The seamless integration of practical effects with computer-generated imagery set new standards for adventure filmmaking. The transformation of the cursed pirates into skeletal figures under moonlight demonstrated the possibilities of blending realistic acting with digital manipulation. These techniques influenced later films that combined live-action performances with extensive digital effects, particularly in scenes that required supernatural or fantastical elements. Pirates of the Caribbean also affected merchandising and cross-platform storytelling strategies. The success of the first film and its sequels created a massive market for merchandise, including action figures, clothing, board games, and collectibles. Theme park experiences, including the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, were updated to incorporate characters, storylines, and designs from the films. This integration of film and theme park experiences represented an innovative approach to franchise expansion, demonstrating how storytelling could be extended across multiple platforms to engage fans more deeply. Video games and interactive media were another area shaped by the film. The popularity of the first movie led to numerous video game adaptations that allowed players to assume the roles of Jack Sparrow, Will Turner, or other characters while exploring pirate worlds. These games often combined action, exploration, and puzzle-solving mechanics inspired by the narrative and cinematic style of the film. The interactive experiences expanded the reach of the story and contributed to the film's cultural longevity. The film also influenced pop culture in subtler ways, from references in television shows and animation to widespread internet memes. Jack Sparrow's voice, mannerisms, and gestures became iconic, appearing in comedic sketches, parody videos, and social media humor. The character's eccentric behavior and dialogue lines were often imitated, reinforcing his status as a recognizable symbol of pirate adventure and pop culture rebellion. Pirates of the Caribbean's legacy extends to inspiring new generations of filmmakers. The film demonstrated the importance of combining character-driven storytelling with large-scale spectacle. Directors working in adventure, fantasy, and historical genres have cited the movie as an influence in balancing action with humor, creating memorable anti-hero characters, and integrating supernatural elements into period settings. Its success also encouraged studios to embrace riskier, original ideas rather than relying solely on established literary or comic book properties. On a broader cultural level, the film contributed to renewed interest in pirate history, mythology, and imagery. Museums, books, documentaries, and educational programs related to piracy experienced a resurgence of public attention. Pirate-themed parties, festivals, and tourism events grew in popularity, with some locations designing experiences inspired by the film's visual and narrative style. The iconic imagery of the Black Pearl, skeleton pirates, and treasure-laden islands became enduring cultural references. Finally, the influence of the film on cinematic franchises cannot be understated. It demonstrated that a compelling combination of charismatic characters, imaginative world-building, humor, and supernatural adventure could sustain multiple sequels over a long period. The model of launching a high-concept adventure film with franchise potential became increasingly common in the film industry, particularly for properties aimed at broad audiences and families. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl resonated strongly with audiences around the world, in part because it offered something rare, a story that balanced humor, adventure, romance, and supernatural intrigue, while presenting characters who were both relatable and larger than life. The film's ability to appeal across generations and cultures led to varied interpretations and reflections from viewers, revealing its broad emotional and psychological impact. Audiences responded not only to the spectacle, but also to the moral ambiguity, character dynamics, and themes embedded in the narrative. Many viewers were immediately drawn to the character of Jack Sparrow. His quirky, unpredictable personality, combined with cleverness and daring, made him a character unlike traditional heroes. Audiences appreciated his ability to navigate danger through wit rather than sheer force, which encouraged a more playful engagement with the story. Viewers often reflected on Sparrow as a symbol of freedom, ingenuity, and self-determination. He became a figure of admiration for his ability to bend rules while maintaining personal charm, and audiences frequently debated his moral choices, highlighting the appeal of morally ambiguous protagonists. Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann also elicited significant audience reflection. Viewers identified with Will's journey of personal growth, responsibility, and courage. His transition from a humble blacksmith to a heroic figure willing to risk everything for love and duty resonated with people who value perseverance and ethical decision-making. Elizabeth's defiance of social expectations, cleverness in navigating dangerous situations, and active participation in her own rescue provided audiences with female character who was capable, intelligent, and resourceful. For many, Elizabeth became an inspiring example of agency and strength in a narrative that might otherwise focus solely on male heroism. Audiences were fascinated by the curse of pirates and the supernatural elements of the story. The skeletal pirates under moonlight became a potent symbol of greed and consequence, and viewers often reflected on the moral lessons embedded in these supernatural consequences. Many interpreted the curse as a metaphor for human obsession and the dangers of desire without restraint. The visual spectacle of the skeletal transformations combined with the suspense of the story encouraged viewers to consider the ethical implications of ambition, theft, and betrayal. Humor was another aspect that shaped audience interpretation. The film's comedic timing, particularly in Jack Sparrow's antics, allowed viewers to experience levity even in tense or dangerous situations. Audiences frequently cited these moments as part of the film's charm, noting that humor humanized characters and made the story more accessible. This blend of humor with high-stakes adventure encouraged viewers to engage with the narrative in a playful, emotionally responsive way, rather than simply observing action from a distance. The moral ambiguity and unpredictability of the characters sparked discussions among audiences about ethics and leadership. Jack Sparrow, as a central figure, challenged conventional notions of heroism, prompting viewers to reflect on the qualities that define a protagonist. Conversations often arose about whether cleverness, adaptability, and charm could be valued as much as honor or bravery. Audiences appreciated that the story allowed space for these interpretations, which contributed to deeper engagement and repeated viewings. The romantic subplot also elicited strong emotional responses. The relationship between Will and Elizabeth provided a narrative anchor that balanced the chaos of pirate adventures. Audiences often reflected on themes of love, loyalty, and personal courage, appreciating how the romance was integrated into the larger adventure rather than overshadowing it. Elizabeth's agency and Will's ethical courage were frequently discussed as factors that made the romance feel believable and emotionally satisfying. The film's visual and auditory spectacle also shaped audience experience and interpretation. Viewers often commented on the immersive quality of the world, from the design of the Black Pearl to the atmospheric use of lighting and music. The combination of scenic locations, dynamic ship battles, and the iconic musical score heightened emotional engagement and helped audiences feel like participants in the story. These sensory elements reinforce interpretations of the narrative as both thrilling and emotionally resonant. Culture reflections on the film often focus on a portrayal of pirates as complex, human characters rather than simplistic villains. Audiences responded positively to the idea that pirates could be charming, witty, and even sympathetic, while still being dangerous and morally flawed. This complexity invited discussions about morality, choice, and the consequences of one's actions. Many viewers interpreted the film as celebrating cleverness, adaptability, and individual freedom, while simultaneously acknowledging that greed and betrayal carry inevitable consequences. Audiences also reflected on the film in terms of escapism and fantasy. The film's combination of historical settings, supernatural curses, and imaginative storytelling allowed viewers to experience adventure in a safe yet thrilling context. The allure of life at sea, hidden treasures, and daring escapades captured the imagination of children and adults alike. Fans often discuss how the movie sparked interest in pirate mythology, historical adventure, and broader fantasy genres, demonstrating the lasting impact of immersive world building. Viewer interpretations were further influenced by repeated exposure to the film and its characters. The quirky humor, moral ambiguity, and iconic lines from Jack Sparrow became part of everyday conversation and fan culture. Audiences used quotes, gestures, and references to share collective enjoyment, leading to the creation of fan art, memes, and online discussions. This participatory aspect reinforced the film's resonance across generations, with fans reflecting on both personal enjoyment and its broader cultural significance. Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl presents a rich tapestry of character development, with each central figure undergoing significant growth, revealing motivations and facing moral or personal challenges that drive the story forward. The film's success relies not only on its action and spectacle, but also on the evolution of its characters, whose arcs are carefully crafted to reflect themes of freedom, morality, courage, and self-discovery. The interplay between character development and narrative tension gives the story emotional depth and keeps audiences engaged. Jack Sparrow, played by Johnny Depp, is arguably the most complex and iconic character in the film. He begins as a seemingly self-serving pirate, opportunistic and eccentric, whose primary concern appears to be reclaiming his ship, the Black Pearl. However, as the story progresses, subtle aspects of his personality emerge, revealing cleverness, loyalty, and resourcefulness. Jack's arc is less about moral transformation and more about revealing layers of his character under pressure. Audiences witness how his wit, improvisation, and strategic thinking allow him to manipulate circumstances, outsmart enemies, and achieve personal and collective goals. By the film's climax, Jack's development manifests through his ability to balance self-interest with strategic cooperation, demonstrating that leadership and heroism can take unconventional forms. His escape at the end reinforces his identity as a free-spirited antihero, whose growth lies in mastering his environment rather than conforming to social or moral norms. Will Turner, portrayed by Orlando Bloom, experiences one of the most traditional and satisfying arcs in the film. He starts as a humble blacksmith, defined by skill, integrity, and latent heroism, yet constrained by social hierarchy and his own doubts about his place in the world. Will's journey involves stepping beyond these limitations, embracing his lineage, and assuming responsibility for saving Elizabeth and confronting Barbassa. Throughout the narrative, he demonstrates bravery, resourcefulness, and moral clarity, which contrasts with Jack's more unpredictable nature. His development is closely tied to themes of love, loyalty, and honor, and his actions ultimately allow him to reconcile personal desire with moral duty. By the story's conclusion, Will transforms from a passive figure constrained by circumstance into an active agent of change, demonstrating the classic hero's journey within the film's adventurous framework. Elizabeth Swann, played by Keira Knightley, also undergoes significant development, though her arc is intertwined with personal agency and defiance of societal expectations. At the beginning of the story, Elizabeth is constrained by the expectations of her father and the colonial social structure. She is curious, intelligent, and adventurous, yet initially cautious about stepping outside societal norms. Her early decision to take Will's medallion demonstrates both her impulsiveness and her moral intuition. Throughout the film, Elizabeth proves herself capable in dangerous situations, cleverly negotiating with pirates, assisting in her own rescue, and making strategic decisions that influence the story's outcome. By the climax, she has evolved into a proactive character who balances courage, wit, and morality, reflecting a thematic emphasis on self-determination and resilience. Captain Barbassa, portrayed by Geoffrey Rush, provides a compelling example of antagonist development. Initially presented as a menacing and morally corrupt pirate, Barbassa's character is complicated by the curse that afflicts him and his crew. His motivations are rooted in greed, survival, and a desire to restore his mortality, making him both villainous and tragic. The curse itself forces him to confront the consequences of his previous choices, and his interactions with protagonists reveal a blend of cunning, ruthlessness, and desperation. Audiences gain insight into the human dimensions of his character, understanding that his villainy is intertwined with victimhood. His arc culminates with the lifting of the curse, restoring mortality and allowing for poetic justice during the climactic battle, which reinforces the narrative's moral and thematic underpinnings. Supporting characters, such as Commodore Norrington, also experience subtle but meaningful development. He begins as a rigid enforcer of colonial law, pursuing justice without personal moral ambiguity. His pursuit of the pirates and entanglement with Elizabeth highlight tensions between duty and personal desire. While his arc is less dramatic than others, he represents a contrasting worldview of law, order, and conventional morality. Interactions with Jack and the pirate world challenge his assumptions, subtly suggesting that the universe cannot be neatly categorized into lawful and lawless factions. The relationships between characters are central to their development. Jack and Will's uneasy alliance demonstrates the tension between honor and pragmatism. Initially, Will distrusts Jack due to his unpredictable nature and reputation as a self-serving pirate. However, shared goals, mutual respect for skill, and exposure to danger foster an understanding that balances pragmatism with morality. This partnership allows both characters to grow, learning from each other's strengths and weaknesses, and serves as a narrative vehicle for exploring themes of trust, deception, and collaboration. Elizabeth's interactions with both Will and Jack highlight contrasts in motivation and morality. With Will, She experiences romantic and ethical alignment, reflecting traditional notions of loyalty and virtue. With Jack, she engages in a relationship defined by cunning, negotiation, and adaptability, emphasizing her capacity for intelligence and resilience. These dual relationships reinforce her development as a multidimensional character capable of navigating complex social and moral landscapes. The development of minor characters also contributes to narrative depth. The cursed crew, for example, serves as a collective antagonist whose evolution is both literal and symbolic. Their skeletal transformations under moonlight reveal hidden truths about human desire, greed, and consequence. These characters' arcs are more thematic than emotional, reinforcing the narrative's moral lessons while adding visual and psychological tension. In terms of narrative technique, the film's pacing allows for organic character growth. Quieter, intimate moments between action sequences provide opportunities to explore motivations, fears, and desires. Sword fights, ship battles, and dramatic confrontations test the characters physically and morally, allowing development to emerge naturally from conflict rather than exposition alone. The interplay of action and character growth keeps audiences invested and allows arcs to feel earned and satisfying. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl owes much of its immersive quality to meticulous costume and set design, which established the film's historical setting, defined character identity, and enhanced narrative and thematic elements. The visual authenticity and creativity in these areas were crucial in transporting audiences to the early 18th century Caribbean while maintaining a heightened sense of adventure and fantasy. The interplay between costume, makeup, and environment allowed the filmmakers to distinguish characters, indicate social hierarchies, and evoke mood, all of which contributed to the story's richness and believability. Costume design was central in defining characters and their social standing. Elizabeth Swann's wardrobe, for example, reflects her aristocratic upbringing with elegant fabrics, tailored cuts, and refined color palettes. These costumes communicate her status, sophistication, and the societal expectations that constrain her. However, subtle choices also hint at her adventurous nature. Simpler practical garments appear when she engages in active sequences or disguises herself, reflecting her intelligence, adaptability, and willingness to defy social norms. Her evolution throughout the story is mirrored in her wardrobe, which shifts from rigid formality to a more dynamic and functional style as she asserts agency and courage, while Turner's costumes emphasize his humble background and practical skill set. As a blacksmith, he wears simple, durable clothing that communicates his working-class status, physicality, and connection to the local community. His attire is functional rather than decorative, designed for labor and movement, which aligns with his active role in sword fights and shipboard action. Subtle changes in his costume over the course of the film, such as the addition of leather accessories or protective gear during adventure sequences, visually reflect his growing involvement in dangerous events and his transformation from passive citizen to heroic figure. Jack Sparrow's costume is arguably the most distinctive and influential. His eclectic ensemble, combining weathered coats, scarves, belts, trinkets, and iconic accessories such as his tricorn hat, beads, and eyeliner, communicates his chaotic, unpredictable nature. The costume merges historical inspiration with theatrical exaggeration, creating a visual identity that is instantly recognizable. Jack's attire also reflects his personality. Layers of clothing suggest resourcefulness, personal history, and flamboyant eccentricity, while the mix of textures and colors reinforces his nonconformity. Every piece, from his boots to the compass he carries, contributes to character storytelling, helping the audience understand his priorities, past, and individuality without explicit exposition. Captain Barbassa's costume reflects both his authority and villainy. His dark, ornate garments, combined with weathered fabrics and detailed embellishments, convey power, status, and menace. As the cursed pirates are revealed under moonlight, subtle design details, such as tarnished accessories, worn leather, and skeletal motifs emphasize the supernatural consequences of greed. The visual transition from human to skeletal form during cursed scenes highlights the interplay of costume and makeup in reinforcing narrative themes and symbolism. Makeup and prosthetics work alongside costumes to create immersive realism. The cursed pirate skeletal transformations were achieved using a combination of digital effects and practical prosthetic makeup, allowing actors to interact naturally with the environment while visually conveying the curse's horror. Subtle dirt, Scars and weathering on characters' faces and hands contribute to the authenticity of the pirate lifestyle, suggesting hard labor, battle experience, and life at sea. These details reinforce the gritty reality of pirate life and enhance the believability of the world. Set design similarly contributes to storytelling and atmosphere. Port Royal, with its wooden docks, market stalls, and colonial architecture, establishes a historical and social context. The careful attention to period-accurate materials, textures, and props immerses viewers in daily colonial life, while providing a contrast to the lawlessness and unpredictability of pirate-infested waters. The town's spatial layout also facilitates narrative clarity, allowing audiences to follow chases, rescues, and confrontations without losing orientation. The Black Pearl and other ships are central to the film's visual storytelling. Each vessel is designed with meticulous attention to detail, from the rigging and sails to the hull's texture and weathering. The Black Pearl's dark, sleek design communicates danger, mystery, and power, distinguishing from other ships visually and symbolically. Interiors are rich with thematic props, such as maps, weapons, lanterns, and navigational tools, which reinforce the pirate lifestyle and provide practical elements for action sequences. These sets allow for dynamic camera work, action choreography, and character interaction. Islands, caves, and other natural environments are equally carefully constructed or chosen. Hidden coves, mysterious treasure-filled caves, and dense forests provide atmospheric backdrops for suspense, discovery, and confrontation. Set designers employ practical effects, detailed props, and textured surfaces to create believable environments that blend with digital enhancements seamlessly. Lighting within these sets further amplifies mood. Flickering torches, sunlight filtering through trees, and moonlit exteriors evoke suspense, romance, or wonder depending on the scene. Props are integral to both character and story. Jack's compass, swords, flintlocks, medallions, and pirate paraphernalia serve as visual extensions of narrative and personality. The cursed gold coins are central symbols of greed and consequence, and their design communicates their mystical significance. Props are not mere decoration. They are functional, narrative-driving objects that contribute to characterization, plot progression, and thematic resonance. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl is renowned not only for its action, visual spectacle, and memorable performances, but also for its tightly crafted dialogue and inventive scriptwriting. The screenplay balances humor, exposition, and character development, providing the foundation for both the film's adventurous pacing and its enduring cultural impact. The dialogue and writing choices are central to defining character identity, advancing the plot, and engaging audiences across multiple levels, from comedy and drama to suspense and romance. One of the most significant aspects of the script is its use of character-driven dialogue. Each major character has a distinctive voice that reflects their personality, background, and worldview. Jack Sparrow's lines are filled with wit, irony, and unpredictability, often delivered in a seemingly rambling yet strategic manner. His speech patterns, which include pauses, digressions, and rhetorical flourishes, establish him as a trickster figure whose cleverness drives both humor and plot. Audiences quickly learn to anticipate both comedy and cunning in his dialogue, making his interactions unpredictable and entertaining. Will Turner's dialogue contrasts sharply with Jack's, emphasizing clarity, earnestness, and morality. His lines often focus on duty, loyalty, and practicality, reinforcing his role as a heroic foil to Jack's chaotic energy. The contrast between Will's straightforward manner and Jack's convoluted phrasing creates dynamic tension and humor in their exchanges, while also underscoring their different approaches to problem-solving and ethical decision-making. These interactions provide insight into their personalities, build relational tension, and allow the audience to understand motivations without explicit exposition. Elizabeth Swann's dialogue is crafted to reflect intelligence, wit, and evolving agency. At the beginning of the film, her lines often convey curiosity, social awareness, and cautious defiance of societal norms. As the story progresses, her dialogue becomes more assertive and strategic, reflecting her growing confidence and ability to influence events. She balances diplomacy, sarcasm, and clever manipulation, using words as tools to navigate danger, negotiate with pirates, and protect herself and those she cares about. This evolution reinforces her character arc, making her an active participant in the narrative rather than a passive damsel in distress. The screenplay also effectively uses dialogue to deliver exposition without slowing pacing. Information about pirate codes, the curse, and historical context is conveyed naturally through conversations between characters, often intertwined with humor or conflict. For example, discussions about the cursed treasure and its consequences are embedded in witty or tense exchanges, allowing the audience to absorb necessary plot points while remaining engaged with character dynamics. This approach demonstrates skillful writing, where narrative clarity is maintained without sacrificing entertainment or momentum. Humor is a defining feature of the script, and it is often generated through dialogue. Jack Sparrow's idiosyncratic lines, double entendres, and comic timing create levity even in high-stakes situations. Humor is also used to develop character relationships, banter between Jack and what reveals their rivalry, begrudging respect, and eventual cooperation, while playful or sarcastic lines between Elizabeth and Jack highlight her intelligence and ability to match his wit. These moments prevent the film from becoming overly serious, maintaining a balance between tension and levity. Tension and suspense are heightened through carefully crafted dialogue. Confrontations with Barbassa, negotiations with the cursed crew, and moments of moral dilemma are punctuated by dialogue that conveys stakes in tension and danger. The script uses pauses, rhetorical questioning, and strategic word choice to create anticipation, uncertainty, and drama. Subtle cues in speech, tone, hesitation, or phrasing signal character intent and foreshadow narrative developments, demonstrating that writing is used as a tool for both storytelling and emotional engagement. Romantic elements are woven into dialogue naturally and effectively. Exchanges between Will and Elizabeth blend sincerity, tension, and understated humor, creating believable emotional chemistry. These lines provide a counterbalance to the action-heavy sequences, giving the audience insight into motivation, longing, and loyalty. The romance is never forced or distracting. Rather, it integrates seamlessly with the larger narrative, supported by dialogue that conveys emotion while advancing plot and character development. The screenplay also incorporates memorable, quotable lines that enhance cultural resonance. Phrases like Jack Sparrow's self-referential humor, his strategic evasions, and humorous commentary on morality and survival have become iconic. These lines contribute to the film's identity, allowing audiences to recall and repeat dialogue long after viewing. The memorability of the script reinforces character identity, narrative tone, and franchise branding. The structure of dialogue complements pacing and scene construction. Exchanges are designed to move the story forward, reveal character, or escalate conflict. Quick, snappy lines heighten tension in combat or chase sequences, while longer, reflective conversations allow a moment of introspection and emotional resonance. Dialogue is never excessive. Every line serves multiple functions, from exposition to humor, characterization, or thematic reinforcement. Tone and voice consistency across the screenplay help unify the film's diverse elements. Despite blending action, comedy, romance, and supernatural themes, the writing maintains a coherent narrative voice that balances theatricality with plausibility. Even in fantastical moments, the dialogue grounds the story in character perspective and motivation, ensuring that audiences remain emotionally and cognitively engaged. Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl was not only a creative and cinematic success, but also a triumph in marketing and promotion, which played a critical role in building anticipation, attracting diverse audiences, and establishing the foundation for a long-running franchise. The strategies employed combined traditional promotional techniques with innovative approaches that leverage the film's connection to the popular theme park ride, its distinctive characters, and the emerging digital landscape of the early 2000s. The marketing campaign was designed to create excitement, broaden the film's appeal across demographic groups, and embed the movie in popular culture before its release. One of the most prominent aspects of the marketing campaign was a connection to the Disney theme park attraction Pirates of the Caribbean. The ride had long been a beloved feature of Disney parks worldwide, and the campaign leveraged its familiarity to create immediate brand recognition. Trailers, posters, and promotional materials highlighted the link to the attraction while emphasizing the new cinematic storytelling experience. By presenting the film as both a nostalgic nod and a fresh, action-packed adventure, the campaign attracted longtime fans of the ride, as well as first-time viewers who were drawn by the promise of high-seas adventure and supernatural intrigue. Trailers were a key component of the promotional strategy. The theatrical trailers highlighted the film's central themes, iconic characters, and high-energy action sequences. Audiences were introduced to Jack Sparrow's eccentric personality, the curse of pirates, and the suspenseful treasure-hunting plot. The trailers balance humor, danger, and romance, giving viewers a sense of the film's tone and pacing, while leaving enough mystery to generate curiosity. Promotional editing techniques, including quick cuts of sword fights, ship battles, and supernatural effects, emphasize spectacle while ensuring the story remained understandable to a broad audience. Poster design and visual branding reinforced the film's identity. Key images included Jack Sparrow in his signature pose with the black pearl looming behind him, often framed against stormy seas or ominous skies. The use of dark, muted colors contrasted with bright accents on costumes and treasure, visually signaling both danger and adventure. Taglines emphasize the mysterious and swashbuckling aspects of the story, enticing viewers with promises of excitement, unpredictability, and humor. These visual elements became instantly recognizable and were used consistently across promotional materials, reinforcing audience familiarity and anticipation. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl stands out in the adventure genre when compared to both earlier pirate films and other works by the same director, highlighting its distinctive tone, storytelling approach, and character construction. Analyzing the film in relation to similar movies, historical adaptations, and Robert Rodriguez's contemporaries provides insight into why it achieved enduring popularity and critical recognition, while redefining pirate cinema for modern audiences. One useful comparison is with classic pirate films of the golden age of Hollywood, such as Captain Blood, 1935, and The Sea Hawk, 1940. Those films emphasize heroic swashbucklers, romanticize high-seas adventure, and clear-cut moral distinctions between protagonists and antagonists. In contrast, Pirates of the Caribbean introduces a morally ambiguous antihero in Jack Sparrow, whose cunning, unpredictability, and self-interest complicate traditional notions of heroism. Whereas older pirate films relied heavily on linear hero-villain dynamics and straightforward romantic plots, Pirates of the Caribbean integrates humor, supernatural elements, and a multi-threaded narrative, allowing for greater character complexity and more unpredictable story developments. The supernatural component also differentiates it from earlier pirate films. Whereas traditional swashbucklers focus on ship battles, duels, and treasure hunting grounded in reality, Pirates of the Caribbean incorporates a cursed crew who transform into skeletal figures under moonlight. This blending of historical adventure with fantasy elements aligns the film more closely with modern fantasy franchises, while maintaining historical context through sets, costumes, and social hierarchies. The inclusion of supernatural motifs adds stakes, suspense, and visual spectacle in a way that earlier pirate films did not explore. Another point of comparison is with later adventure films and fantasy franchises, such as Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings. Like these films, Pirates of the Caribbean relies on strong world-building, detailed visual and auditory design, and character-driven storytelling to immerse audiences. However, its tone is notably different. Whereas Harry Potter often emphasizes moral clarity and epic destiny, and Lord of the Rings focuses on high fantasy gravitas, Pirates of the Caribbean balances comedy, irony, and subversive humor alongside adventure. This tonal mixture creates a more playful and unpredictable narrative that appeals to both younger viewers and adult audiences, setting it apart from other high-concept fantasy films of the era. Comparing the film to other works directed by Gore Verbinski, including The Ring, 2002, and Rango, 2011, highlights his versatility and evolving style. In The Ring, Verbinski demonstrates mastery of suspense, atmosphere, and pacing, while in Rango, he blends comedy with visual inventiveness in an animated context. Pirates of the Caribbean integrates these strengths, suspense, visual creativity, and tonal variation, into a live-action adventure, showcasing Verbinski's ability to handle genre hybridity and maintain narrative cohesion across complex storylines. The film's success demonstrates how his directorial style adapts to diverse genres while retaining a signature attention to pacing, character, and spectacle. Pirates of the Caribbean also compares to other Disney adaptations and franchise films, such as Alice in Wonderland, 2010, or Sleeping Beauty, 1959. Unlike traditional Disney adaptations, which often maintain a family-friendly and morally simplified approach, Pirates of the Caribbean embraces morally complex characters, layered dialogue, and darkly humorous scenarios. Jack Sparrow's unpredictable morality, the cursed crew's supernatural punishment, and the morally ambiguous choices of other characters reflect a shift toward mature storytelling that appeals to broader audiences while still maintaining family-friendly spectacle. This strategic tonal balance distinguishes it from conventional Disney fare while leveraging the brand's recognition to draw in audiences. In terms of narrative structure, Pirates of the Caribbean can be compared to modern adventure epics like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. Both films feature a charismatic lead navigating dangerous situations, treasure hunts, and clever plot twists. However, Pirates of the Caribbean introduces a layered ensemble cast and integrates supernatural stakes more prominently than Indiana Jones, giving the narrative a heightened sense of unpredictability. Additionally, Jack Sparrow's comedic and improvisational style contrasts with Indiana Jones' more earnest, action-driven heroism, demonstrating how Pirates of the Caribbean subverts and modernizes genre expectations. Visually, the film also distinguishes itself from other pirate or historical adventure films. The combination of richly detailed sets, atmospheric lighting, and dynamic camera movement creates a cinematic style that is both grand and intimate. Older pirate films often relied on static shots and stage-like set design, while Pirates of the Caribbean immerses audiences through sweeping shipboard sequences, practical effects blended with CGI, and carefully choreographed action. This visual innovation contributes to the film's sense of scale, urgency, and immersion, enhancing both audience engagement and narrative clarity. The film's dialogue and character construction also provide a unique comparative perspective. Unlike traditional adventure films with predictable heroic archetypes, the screenplay balances humor, tension, and exposition while giving characters distinctive voices. Jack Sparrow's unpredictable speech patterns and mannerisms, Elizabeth's clever assertiveness, and Will's earnest heroism create a dynamic ensemble that differentiates the film from both classical swashbucklers and modern action-adventure films. The interplay between humor and heroism creates a layered narrative experience that remains engaging on multiple viewings.